Reason why there's an overflow crowd here. Parents from Martin Luther King High School want to know more about these fights that were started allegedly by a transgender student. There have been multiple fights. Take a look. Two students arguing at Martin Luther King High School. It's unclear who started the fight, but the tall student is said to be trans. There's pushing and shoving, and eventually another student jumps in and fists fly. Parents and students say the tall student identifies as trans, and that gave the student access to the locker room and bathrooms designated for females.
Yeah, she is homeschooled.
This parent didn't want to be identified, but says she's pulled her daughter out of school for her safety.
The fights that are unacceptable, the things that she does encounter, other students have encountered, walking in the bathrooms, PE, just the acceptance is fine.
Fine, she says, but claims the school is doing too much to accommodate a couple of trans students. She's complained but got no satisfaction.
Everything was on the hush-hush.
Oh, they didn't want to talk to you?
They didn't want to talk to us about it.
Students say fights are an every week occurrence, but the last two fights involved this one trans student, adding fuel to the fire, rumors of the trans student's behavior.
And then he's also in the girls' locker room using girls' restrooms. He spit on my friends that are girls, females, and he shows his genitals in the locker room.
This is another mother who wanted to stay anonymous. She has a female sophomore student and believes the trans student presents as masculine, and that should be enough to keep them away from the teen girls. But she tries to understand the trans student's struggles.
They're obviously acting out because they obviously mentally or probably just have a lot of emotion. They have a lot of feeling going on, and they probably don't know how to handle what's going on and how they're being treated.
But the mom also says this is not an acceptable way to handle their feelings. Riverside Unified School District released a statement this afternoon that says that the student, the trans student at the center of those fights, will no longer attend Martin Luther King High School. But I talked to a couple of parents. I'm not sure that that is enough to satisfy them.
When you're fighting to make sure everyone is included and no one is left out, you have to make sure you're not excluding anyone. And when I watch an 18-year-old speak as if she's been excluded from certain areas because they have to worry and deal with a trans person who's going around beating people, flashing genitalia, and anyone who has a problem with it in a girl's bathroom gets spat at.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and only ladies and gentlemen it is and shall always be. I am an 18-year-old high school student and wanted to take this time to bring to your attention the current issue with biological men claiming they are women and in turn truly believing that they are entitled to use women's spaces. There was an incident within our district that occurred recently regarding a transgender woman who really is a biological man having an altercation with a young woman at MLK High School. It was infuriating when I had seen the video on social media, but what was detrimental to this is the fact that this man is and has been using the women's restroom and locker room. Firstly, the question we must address is why are we affirming the mental confusion of this boy and putting the safety of women in jeopardy by allowing mentally confused men to use the women's spaces? Of course, any male who claims he is a woman will accept it. But what about the women? What about the true girls like myself who are female down to our DNA? Why don't we ever get a say in whether or not we are comfortable with this? The truth is, we aren't. The majority of us aren't, and yet nothing has been done to protect the safety of these women. I will conclude with this. It all starts with you. You are in charge of the safety of us women and the kids of our parents. So please do something about it. Thank you.
You open yourself up to understanding. People feel excluded when you're trying to bring in other people. And honestly, I don't know the right scenario, because when I bring up trans bathroom, everyone says it costs a lot of money. When I say go over there into a specified bathroom, everybody brings up how they're scared that they're going to get beat up in a bathroom. So I truly don't even know. And I don't really even have an idea as to navigate a scenario where you have people wanting to be included and people feeling like they're being excluded. Because if you remember, you had biological women bringing up how they felt uncomfortable with a trans teammate in a locker room, and all the biological women got kicked out. So no one really knows the proper way to navigate this. And so we're just going to have to go with the thin line between love and hate, and understanding that some people are going to abuse powers. You're going to have all these ideas brought to you're going to have all these ideas put in place that everyone thinks is a bright idea. And then they get into these school conference meetings and they understand it's not really the best idea. And some people could be dismissed. Some people could be labeled as transphobic for some reason. But it's important to hear people and what they're saying, because if they're voicing that something is taking place because of school rules being put in place that's detrimental to a group of people, you should be making sure that everybody comes out okay and not just one specific group or one specific person.
A school volleyball team has been banned from its own locker room while school officials investigate a conflict involving a transgender student on the team.
Kiana Burks is live outside of Randolph Union High School, where she talked with one of the players who is now facing disciplinary action. Kiana, what do you know?
Vermont education policy says that students can play sports and use whatever locker room corresponds with their gender. But some members of the Randolph girls volleyball team say that they object to having one of their transgender teammates be in the room while they change. I spoke to one of the girls.
It's a huge thing. Everyone's asking, like, so why aren't you allowed in the locker room?
High school student Blake Ellen and her teammates are currently barred from using the locker room after some of the girls on the team objected to allowing a transgender player in the girls' locker room.
My mom wants me to do this interview to try to make a change.
Ellen says the dispute started when the trans student made an inappropriate comment while members of the volleyball team were getting changed. She says her issue is not with having the trans student on the team or at school, but specifically in the locker room.
Biological boys that go in the girls' bathroom, but never a locker room situation.
She says that fellow team members and parents have also raised similar concerns and have approached the school with them. They were told that under state law, the transgender student could use whatever locker room they identified with. In an email to families, school officials said that the school has plenty of space where students who feel uncomfortable with the laws may change in privacy.
They want all the girls who feel uncomfortable, so pretty much 10 girls, to get changed in a single stall bathroom, which would take over 30 minutes, when if one person got changed separately, it would take a minute. No extra time.
In the email to parents, school officials say they are conducting an investigation into allegations the girls harassed the transgender student. Lisa Floyd, the co-principal of Randolph Union High School, declined to go on camera, but in an email told me that student safety was the district's highest priority and that when policies are violated, disciplinary action consistent with the law will be taken. We also reached out to the state education agency but didn't get a response. AOE policy states in part that the use of restrooms and locker rooms by transgender students requires schools to consider numerous factors. But the policy goes on to state that a transgender student should not be required to use a locker room or restroom that conflicts with the student's gender identity.
So every girl, no one's allowed in the locker room, no volleyball girls. Even during school to get changed for gym class, no one's allowed from volleyball.
And the school says that their decision to close the locker rooms and launch the investigation should not be seen as judgment on either side of the dispute, and say that they are continuing to work to create the safest environment possible for all of their students.
Believe all women unless they talk about a transgender. I'm glad that a person who's been getting in fights and apparently spreading their genitalia and spitting at people who have a problem with it has been expelled. But in the future, to avoid anyone speaking up against the school board, how about instead of just putting rules in and washing your hands with the situation, you actually take the time to understand that these rules could exclude someone out and be put in a situation where they have to speak against the school because they feel as though they're being targeted and discriminated against based on a scenario where you want to be inclusive, but you left out a bunch of people. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.